Oh, boys, this time I farted in here. Fuck, it wasn't even Sully. Can't even blame it on the dog now. Jax, one of the boys was chirping you for farting on your pod.
Yeah, and I don't know, maybe I did, I don't think so, I'm sure happy to fart. I mean, I'm not saying I don't fart. I just don't I don't know that they heard it. I mean, I don't buy, but maybe it's possible.
See, I have this thing where I always know when it's coming, if it's going to be audible or not.
You can strategically make sure that the release is inaudible if you want.
Pump fake in the rectum.
What do you do? What do you do? You spread them, or you just like you slow it down?
No, you just slow it down, just a slow leak. Gets a little dicey, I'll give you that.
Leaking is not something you wanna do.
It sounds kind of like a dangerous game.
Trav had to shut the show down halfway through because he shit himself tonight. Yeah. We only got a 17-minute pod today, guys.
It sounds like we should lead off with Bayshell Tootin'.
How about this one? How about this one? Jaden Pooh.
DJ Shittens.
I got one. Brashart Smith.
I got you
Brashart
on this.
Smith.
Brashart Smith. Sights and sounds and edges found. You will now get down with the Underground, the show that goes to the depths of the Dynasty landscape. Dynasty Underground is back. I am Trav here, hosting, West Coasting. Got the boys back with me. We are posted up on the Undroppables YouTube channel. Please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Make sure you keep up to date on every episode. We're dropping them weekly, and we're having a ton of fun doing it. And the guys who are involved in said hilarity with me, of course, the wise man, Mr. Jax Falcone. How you doing tonight, brother?
I'm doing great. I just wanna get to the bottom of this, Shedeur Sanders tapping the balls situation.
Yeah, we are. We will definitely get there as long as we can stick it out. And then, of course, the aristocrat, Joe Quavius. Joe Kuvatakis, how you doing tonight, brother?
Oh man, I'm excellent. I have been waiting for this podcast. I feel like for weeks. This is a topic I've wanted to broach, but I feel like I've never been more prepared to have this conversation. And there's no two MFers I'd rather have it with than you two gentlemen. So let's go.
Totally. Of course, last week you somewhat aggressively forced this topic on us, but Jackson and I, of course, did want to talk about it as well. We're going to be talking about running backs tonight, guys, and then maybe a little bit of quarterbacks at the end. The running backs that you specifically wanted to talk about, we're kind of in a rankings vibe right now for any of our listeners, and you wanted to talk about our running backs 6 through 15, Joe. 1 through 5 is some sort of assortment of Ashton Jeanty, Omarion Hampton, Travion Henderson, Quinshawn Judkins, and Caleb Johnson. We have beaten those horses dead this draft season. And so we're going to talk about some of these guys that are a little bit back behind there. And I think it's going to be a really good conversation, guys, because I was looking at some kind of mock draft database stuff today as well. And even back in the 5th and 6th round are guys that we have talked about that we are in love with potentially. So I think we're going to have to make a lot of business decisions for our fantasy rosters on some guys with draft capital that we previously would have balked at. We're going to have to decide if that talent is going to win out and maybe get them through what might be a weedy depth chart potentially. So I think this is going to be really good discussion, guys. And like you said, Joe, no rather fellas I would do this with. Of course, going to be good discussion. Just, yeah, thankful to all of our listeners as well. Before we get started, guys, lots of good reception on the show, lots of good commenting on social media, on YouTube, and all of that in the Discord. Everyone's loving the show, so we're very, very appreciative of that. We have our own group chat, and we are sharing all of that with each other, and we're all getting very, very motivated by it. So appreciative of you, and share it with your friends, let everybody know, and just got to keep that baby growing. But yeah, guys, it's this is going to be a fulsome conversation, so I'm buckled up because we all love the running back position. I think for me, it's still kind of the backbone of a lot of my rosters. I like to have a deep running back group, and these are the guys that I'm going to be grabbing. So I kind of thought we'd follow a similar flow as we did last week, guys. We're going to talk about maybe the 6 through 10 first, and then we'll talk through the 10 through 15. Then we'll get into some of these dark horses after that. then maybe we're going to talk about some of these quarterbacks, including one Shedeur Sanders and the way he taps balls. But let's look at our running backs here, guys. So I'm gonna give you guys my 6 through 10 first. I'm gonna take the reins a little bit, guys, because I'm not just a pretty face on this show. Okay, my my running back 6 is Devin Neal. Still have him in there. Still believe in the talent. I know the combine wasn't necessarily what we wanted it to be, but I think he can be something in the NFL if given the correct opportunity. Number 7 for me is RJ Harvey. Number 8 is Ollie Gordon. Number 9 is DJ Giddens. And number 10 for me is Cam Scadabo. And his row on my notes sheet here, guys, has a number 7 beside it. I moved him down a little bit as I was preparing for this show because of some of the things that we've talked about and some of the things that I have looked at since. And so I'm really excited to get talking about this. So 6 through 10 for me, guys: Devin Neal, RJ Harvey, Ollie Gordon, DJ Giddens, and Cam Scadabo. Jax, I wonder if you want to kick into yours and tell me how they differ. Tell me if any of mine are crazy. What do you think?
Well, we've been talking about this for a long time about how running back 6 through 20 is basically a jumbled mess and hard to parse. So I would actually have no problem with almost anybody who disagreed with anything that you mentioned. But I will say I have some agreement, some disagreement. Ironically, I also have 6 through 10 as a tier of mine personally. So for me, that's sort of a tier, loosely held together, but a tier nonetheless. 6 is RJ Harvey, Cam Scadabo, Ollie Gordon, Bashal Tutin, Jarquez Hunter. That's the group that I really like. And then I'll follow it up with a new a tier after that. That's also pretty deep, but that's where I'm at. Joe, what about you?
Whoa. All right. First of all, I want to just say I'm ready for my mind to be changed tonight.
Me too.
I'm open to changing. Even since I submitted my rankings, yesterday, I've already slated 5 changes to happen. So here is my 6 through 10. I do feel like 6 through 10 is a tier.
Yeah.
I do feel like 11 through 16, maybe even 17 is a tier.
Yep.
Right.
Same.
And then after that,
Right around
I
there, yeah.
lose, and with every tier, I lose conviction. But here's the guys I have the most conviction in of the dudes we're going to be talking about tonight. It's Cam Scadabo, RJ Harvey, Damian Martinez, DJ Giddens, and Bashal Tutin. That rounds out my top 10.
I like it. So Harvey and Giddens both consensus in there, and then Scadabo is in there for both of us as well, but different spots. Kind of like what you guys said about those tiers. For me, I have Bashal Tutin, who you both have in your top 10, as my running back 11, and he's really close to being in that tier. So I could have a kind of a 6-man tier as well. Totally open to changing that. And I think what you guys say about Bashal Tutin and the speed that he has, and I think the NFL liking him more and more from what we're hearing, is kind of making me on board with him being in that tier with these guys. So I like that. Who do we have here? I have Ollie Gordon still in there, guys. I have Ollie
Me too.
Gordon as my 8. Yeah, and where is he for you, Jax?
8.
8, perfect.
Yeah.
Same as me. And then Joe, where do you have him?
I've got him at 12. Actually, I think what was most telling about what we all just did, and this is the fun of having the conversation, is who's missing, right? None of us have Dylan Sampson in there. I'd say
Correct.
he's consensus top 10, and none of us have him in there.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Who else is missing?
Yeah, I was
think-
listening
did
to
anybody, nobody
I was-
said Brashard Smith, right?
No,
Yeah.
and he's
No.
close for me as well. But
Yeah,
I
me
was,
too.
Close to.
I was listening to Establish the Run, and Mike Renner was on there, and he has Dylan Sampson as his RB2. And it's like, for me, this feels very strong to have him up there.
Yeah.
I do feel like, he is in that next tier down, which I just said, and I think you guys all agree that 11 through 17 tier is pretty close to the 6 through 10 tier. To me, it's kind of like I just want to like some guys better than some other guys for reasons that we're going to talk about. But at the end of the day, draft capital, look, Scott Connor's been doing this thing where he'll put, player X goes round 2 to, the Jets behind, Breece Hall and Braylon Allen, and some other guy will go round 5 to, Dallas with no other running backs taken. Who do you prefer, the round 2 pick or the round 5 pick? It's like, some of these things are going to get really messy and or really clear by the draft and the landing spots and the draft capital. That's going to easily affect us. Like if Dylan Sampson goes in round 2 to, like a really great landing spot, like Houston or something, we're like, all right, but yeah, I'm in. Let's
Yeah.
go. Right. Like, I mean, he's fine. It's not like I dislike. So that's the thing with this class. Like a lot of times by the time you're getting to RB 15 to 20, those are running backs that you really don't even like, you know?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And in this particular class, it's like, no, actually, I like all the running backs 15 through 20, which is rare and not typical. So I think that's a difference. I'm gonna have Matt Waldman on the program tomorrow, the undrafted, and I heard him talking about it, and now I'm gonna be able to talk to him. But he feels sort of the same way. He's like, dude, even though I have this guy further down at like RB 12 or whatever, he goes, he'd still rank in most classes maybe in the top 5. So I think that's really something that is important to mention because I think sometimes people hear this and be like, dude, they don't even like Dylan Sampson. It's like, that's not true, right?
Yeah. I don't dislike this running back class until you get to like running back 22, right? I'm
Yep.
kind of interested all the way to there, which is wild because that's
Yep.
like, definitely, that's like a more than a third of your draft at
Mhm.
being running backs, right? So,
Yes. And a lot of times when you're back there, like Marcus Yarns is maybe one of those guys, but he is like right around running back 20. He's 22 for me. But a lot of times it's guys like that that are in the top 20 where they're like very specified skill set type guys that
Yes.
are like
Yeah.
Tariq Cohen's and players like that. We're like,
Mhm.
dude, Tariq Cohen, if he gets a role, is Darren Sproles, whatever.
mhm.
Deuce
Yeah.
Vaughn, remember this?
James
Like,
White, like, what if someone turns into James fucking White, right?
right? We always had those types of players, whereas this year I don't really see very much of that. Like there's some relative one trick ponies, maybe you could say, but even a guy like Damian Martinez, who doesn't necessarily have passing game acumen behind, in his profile, he kind of projects it to be a potential 3 down player, right? You know what I mean? It's not
Totally.
like he can't do it, right? So
He's not
totally,
far enough back to be considered one of those one-trick ponies, right? He's still
totally,
in a tier where he's viable to get some draft capital,
no doubt.
viable to get some opportunity in the NFL, as opposed to these guys who are a dart throw that if they hit on that one trick where that's why I kind of think that Dylan Sampson um, running back 2 ranking is a little bit wild because I think for him, he's not necessarily a one trick pony or anything, but he does one thing really well, and that is speed and explosiveness. Obviously, the combine wasn't as
Yeah.
explosive as we wanted him to be, which is why he has been tanked. But I feel like if you're ranking him that high, you're trying to bank on him being explosive play after play after play after play in the NFL, being an undersized back. And that's just not really a bet that I'm happy to take on a guy who is much slower than he needed to be, which our man Joe Quave has much profiled.
Should
Yeah.
we sort of start with the top,
Please.
Yeah,
sort
let's
of
do it.
who's like our consensus 6, 7 would be maybe RJ Harvey, Cam Scatabo, or RJ Harvey, is that right?
I'd say RJ Harvey because I have Devin Neal in at 6 still.
Yeah.
And Joe, you are way, way down on some Devin Neal, so he's not it. RJ Harvey is my 7, and I think he would probably be it for
Yeah, so
us.
All right,
go
this is great
go
because
for it.
I gotta just start with a story on RJ Harvey, or more specifically, his dad. I don't know if you guys saw this
Yes.
on Twitter, dude. RJ
Yes.
Harvey's dad got in my mentions, right? I literally put it out there on Twitter
You
saying I'm debating between 6 and 7 between Cam Scatabo and RJ Harvey, and kind of just put some feelers out to see what the people had to say, right? And our boy Snoog from Smash Accept, he commented, he's like, Scatabo all the way. I'm like, I think that's where I'm leaning to. And it's really like the tiebreaker is just age for me. And then RJ Harvey's dad comments and he's like, there's only 1 year difference in their age. And I was like, whoa. Right. And so, like, I was like, how do I even respond? Like, I looked it up. It was very clear as his dad. He had all this RJ Harvey, propaganda on his timeline. Right. And so I'm like, all right, I want to be obviously respectful. This man cares. And I'd be doing the same thing if it was my kid too. But like, I don't know, maybe not commenting, but I would definitely be scanning Twitter.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I just commented and I said something along the lines of, like, hey, first of all, you must be so proud. He's one of my favorite players in this draft. I really like his profile. I named like a game that I like really appreciated from him. And I was like, give me a reason, like, give me a tiebreaker or something like that. And then like the next morning, the tweet was deleted. So good on him for deleting the tweet because like that's a bad look. You don't want to be out there defending your son on the internet.
True.
But at the same time, it was pretty close. And that alone, I moved RJ Harvey down 1 just for that.
Was his name Chad Harvey? Chad from
Yeah, where is he from? Where is he from? I know
No.
Harvey went to
uh,
Central Florida, but is he
yeah,
actually from Texas?
Chad
I
from
got I got
Florida.
I actually got like a screenshot of it. Hang on, because he deleted the tweet. But oh, dude, it was so funny. Someone's like, just go over the top and call him Bobby Harvey or something, because it's like Robert Harvey, I think. So it's like, call him Bobby. That's the power move. I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. We're gonna be respectful of Mr. Harvey here, and good for
Totally.
him. What a great time in their life.
Well,
Yeah,
Anyway,
absolutely.
I guess we should give some actual takes, huh?
maybe we should
All right,
start.
all right. Here's what I love about RJ Harvey: violent runner with really good lateral movement. And that's kind of a rare combination in and of itself. Because when you think violent runner, you don't think lateral movement. And he's actually got both. He's violent when he needs to be, but he eludes stuff as well. So my next note is he usually makes the first guy miss. And if he doesn't, he sheds the first tackler. So that kind of goes into the first point, right? So very good vision, very strong cutter. My biggest knock on him is he's 24 years old, so he's got like the Ray Davis age problem that we were talking about last year. And that's my thing. It's like, okay, how much runway do we actually have with RJ Harvey on our dynasty rosters? And that is something that we have to keep in mind. So that's really my biggest knock. It's a toss up between him and Scattaboo. I like both so much, but that was really the difference for me, is just the fact that he's 24. He's going to be 25 when the season starts. It's like we're getting for first contract out of this guy, and maybe if we're lucky a little bit more, but boy do I like the player. He's to your point, Jax, he's got the ass mask that we're looking for.
There we
He's
go.
the anyways,
Yeah,
that's
no,
what I
look,
got to say about RJ.
for me, RJ Harvey like is just green lights all over his profile. Missed tackles force per rush among the top, yards per rush, both career and final season, among the best, if not the best. He was way better than the other running backs in his on his team. Green lights there. He has the highest career 15-yard run rate in the class. Clears everybody by quite a bit, actually. He was really good at the second level, as he's one of the best at turning 10-yard runs into 15-yard runs. He's 1.44 yards per route run in his career, 11.8. Now, by the way, Cam Scatterbo's 12.9 yards per reception for his career, also way at the top of that list. You look at his 40 time, it was a 4.4 flat, one of the best in the class, just behind guys like Bashal Tootin and Jaden Blue, and one other player. I can't remember who also ran a 4.39 or whatever. But whatever, he's right there, right? So he's got everything. His speed score is there. His BMI is there. His BMI is actually one of the biggest in the class, 31.2, which
Mhm.
means the ass mass is real. 5'8", 205. He's a big, stout guy with
Mhm.
enough weight behind him. He ran that 4.4 flat at the combine at 205. Who knows if he
Mhm.
plays heavier? I'm not sure. Maybe he does. Maybe he plays closer to 210. If he plays lighter, well, then he's really freaking fast. So
Mhm.
one way or the other, I mean, he can afford to play a little bit lighter, maybe at a Dylan Sampson size, but he's quite a player. And by the metrics, he's a better running back than Dylan Sampson. Um, so I think those two guys you could put in the same bucket, but I think I prefer Harvey. And if the NFL is even close on those two guys, and I'm going to prefer Harvey. If the NFL really prefers a guy like Sampson, maybe we're forced to move Sampson ahead of Harvey. That'll just hurt my sensibilities, but that's where I'm at with Harvey. Great player.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
109 speed score, 128 burst score as well
Yep.
at 205. So it's a good combination of speed score, burst score, and BMI, right? That's
Yep.
a tough dude to bring down. And that kind of, is evidenced by the fact of what I said and what I saw on film, which is like he's really good at eluding tackles. He's really good at breaking tackles. He's got both. And that's what makes him special. And I always like these running backs that are a little bit shorter too, because I just always think of Maurice Jones-Drew, right?
Yeah.
Dude
Harder to
gets lost
tackle.
back there and then just explodes through a hole in the NFL.
Yeah, man. And all that stuff you said is kind of why the age doesn't matter as much to me because I think with running backs, like you're kind of expecting a 4 year shelf life anyway, unless you're drafting these elite guys that go at the top of the real NFL draft. And so for me, if you get 4 years of solid starter work out of RJ Harvey as a guy who definitely at his age, you would like him to see some starter snaps kind of late into this year, get into a place where he only has one other guy ahead of him on the depth chart, let's say. But I think he's going to get that. And I think it's going to be really fun to see him because the reason I have him over Scatabo is because I know that Harvey can make big plays in the NFL. And I don't know that's necessarily going to happen for Cam Scatabo, despite what we've seen him do in college. So I think Harvey will have that over Scatabo. It's funny that we say that though, guys, because I just ran a quick consensus of our running back rankings because I do have them fresh. I got the spreadsheet open.
Yeah.
Those ranks, the pre-draft ranks are going to drop this week. I promise. I've just been running behind on the last couple, but our consensus running back 6 is one Cam Scatabo, and that's with me having him as actually, you know what I mentioned? I changed it while we were doing this. So this is with me having him at running back 7 previously.
Right.
So it was Cam Scatabo. It might be Harvey otherwise,
So
but
so
really close.
let's talk about
Yeah.
Scatabo then. I mean, Scatabo was a tackle breaker in college, right? Just like at an incredible level. Really only Ashton Jeanty is a better tackle breaker or missed tackles forced per reception. Um, he's not explosive by the numbers, right?
Mhm.
His 15-yard run rate is good. His 10-yard run rate that turns into 15-yard run rate not so good. So he is sort of being caught at that second level, right? He is getting a lot of 10-yard runs, but not a lot of 15-yard runs. So, it shows up in the data, right? Now, what's interesting though is he leads the class in yards per reception. So he's a real receiver. Like that's the thing about this. Like he's 1.58 yards per route run. That's way the hell up there. I think it's like third in the class or something like that. And 12.9 yards per reception for his career. Like that's a career number. That's just not a spike year. That's on 69 receptions. Nice. Um,
Nice.
so yeah, this is a guy that like when you look
Drink.
at it, yep. But like when you look at Scatabo and you start to hear the comps of David Montgomery, Josh Jacobs, they may be a little bit, off because of the, the school and the pedigree there or whatever, but they're not crazy. Like this is a real NFL player. And again, if he gets the draft capital and a spot to prove himself, look, I think he's going to be a dog at the next level. He just needs some opportunities. He's certainly not going to tire. It's not like he's going to be out there like, oh, get me out. I don't like the contact or whatever. He's going to play through the contact. He's a highly rated player by PFF and other, film scouting, organization. So I really think that Cam has an opportunity. You mentioned the mock draft database. He's the RB6 in mock draft database right now, almost locked into second, third round draft capital. All that spells that, we should be paying attention to Cam Scatabo, like it or not.
That's wild. I didn't even know he was the RB6 in the mock draft database. So I've got him as my RB6, but like I try not to look at that stuff that much until like we get into like the week of the draft because that's when, and whatever, it's lying season anyways. But
Yes, that's right.
um yeah, the first thing you mentioned, Jax, is my first note, which is tackle breaking. So
Yeah.
my notes on him, tackle breaking,
Easy for you to
patience
say.
in that he waits for plays to develop, great hands, balance, great first cuts, consistently falls forward, and a good blocker. So he's 23. So, like we just talked about this with, Mr. Davis, excuse me, Mr. Harvey. But, at, what is he, 5'9", 219, right? He's similar to RJ in that this is a compact, high BMI player who's got moves. And you said the explosiveness isn't there. I guess it depends on how we define explosiveness because he had a 128 burst score, right? That's what I think of when I think of explosiveness is like how well do you explode when you first, get off the line, right? Get through the line of scrimmage, like,
I,
and
I may
that's
call I may call that burst, right? So
yeah.
Yeah.
only because
You're talking
explosiveness
about
feels like
explosive plays.
down the
Yeah.
field, right?
Same.
I mean, and obviously you could use those words in a number of different ways, but I would define those two things. One is burst, one is explosiveness, but we're parsing language, not what we're talking about.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I mean, I go back to there's a couple of games. One is versus Iowa State where he had a big run out of a shotgun handoff, right? Able to elude the first tackler, explodes through my little words, explodes through the hole through the right B gap. On the second level, he breaks 2 tacklers as defenders get to him at the same time from both sides. Shows impressive balance, breaks a third and fourth tackle in the third level before finally being chased down. 50-yard run. That's an
What's
explosive play.
crazy? I have the exact same notes here, except he bursted through the hole there. Same thing though. I just almost word for word. Pretty impressive. Pretty impressive
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
We're
I
seeing
mean,
things similar.
like what we're saying though is like he gets caught. So here this is a theme. This is a theme, and I want to like point out the differentiation here, right? In that same game, he had another run where he had 6 broken tackles on a run to the left, ends up across the field on the right side, and then he finally gets run down at the 17-yard line. So that's another big play,
Yeah.
right? You call that an explosive play, but I think what
Yes.
we're talking about is like breakaway runs for touchdowns. And I think that's not going to happen that often, but I think the explosive plays are there. And he actually has, on the last play of that game, or I should say on my last note of that game, he houses a screen pass from 39 yards out. So that speaks to like the receiving profile. He used the blocks well on that one as well, and there's good blocking from the wide receivers, but 35-yard touchdown, like we'll take that. That's an explosive play, right? So he's got these 40, 50, 35-yard plays in him. But I don't think he's going to be like a Brees Hall out there or like a Jonathan Taylor out there just housing it from 80 out. That's not the dude he is.
Right.
I think he's going to be a very consistent yard gainer, and I think coaches love that shit.
Yeah, no doubt. There's certain players, Joe, where when when they get to the edge, they're able to sort of sprint to the sideline, get the edge, and then turn up field and don't get caught. He's not that guy. He's not going to beat guys to the edge and press the edge. He's going to break a tackle to get to the next level. He's going to be elusive in those ways. He's got that burst and explosion that's going to help him force missed tackles and then get to the edge. So I think we're saying the same thing. And that's
it's kind of like Mike Allstott.
Oh, totally. Kind of like Theo Greminger, I thought.
Is
I
that,
saw a lot of Theo
yeah,
Greminger.
definitely see a lot of Theo in camp.
I see a lot of Theo in the way he plays.
I
But
think for me,
go
guys, what some of that stuff you're saying about Scatabo though is not stuff that's going to be repeatable at the NFL level, right? Like if Scatabo is ever moving side to side in the NFL level, that is trouble. If we need Cam Scatabo to string together multiple broken tackles for him to make these 10 maybe 15-yard runs, then I think that could be a little bit of a problem. Like I still like the player and I think he can be good if he gets volume, but I think with that limitation that I'm seeing, I guess, I don't know if he's going to get enough volume to be somebody who takes on a 3-down skill set. You know what I mean? And
but
not
I think
just because of the Theo Greminger comp. I do think some of it is some of the talent as well, not just
I think we
the
could
hard
say
hat.
some of that. I think we could say some of that same stuff about maybe Devin Neal, Ollie Gordon, right?
Fair,
Like,
yeah.
do you know what I mean? Like, it's not like they're running away from anybody either. So I think there's, known limitations of certain players, and that doesn't make them not good. It's like, we probably got locked in. I certainly got locked into the fact that like David Montgomery was not quite fast enough. So I sort of faded him when he was a rookie. Well, that was a bad process because I just had to understand that he wasn't going to be a Jonathan Taylor type. He's going to be a David Montgomery type. And if he's good at being that type of player, that's still very, very viable in the NFL. You know what I'm saying? So like, it's still, we understand his limitations, but he's still a very, very good player, period. And end of story. You know what I mean? It's just whether or not, right.
Yeah. And I think the difference for Neal with me is a little bit the fact that his kind of slashing running style creates space for himself. You know what I mean? Creates space where he doesn't need to get a guy off him all the time, maybe is why I like Devin Neal still. Some of it may be the kind of loving Devin Neal pre-combine and not wanting to come off of that because of the combine, because I believe in the talent. So I'm kind of ready to be wrong on that Devin Neal take for sure.
Let's
But
talk about
I
Devin
like
Neal
the
then.
talent, man. I like the talent. And I think if he can get into the right situation, I think it could be like he could have some of the bigger seasons of any of these guys, right? If we look at I was looking at Player Profiler, the comp is Kareem Hunt. guys, which I actually really like. He's got a lot of similar metrics as far as the 40 time, the speed score, and the burst score.
Mm.
Didn't get the other ones because of the workouts that he didn't do, but Neil was actually better than Kareem Hunt in all three of those categories, despite not being like elite in any of them. And I think with Kareem Hunt, what happened is he landed in the perfect system that gave him the volume and gave him the space to operate. And so I think Devin Neal, definitely a low upside or low
No, you got it right.
no, he's definitely like one of those high risk, potentially high reward players, and the risk could definitely kill you. But I'm banking on the reward, I think, with Devin Neal a little bit.
What do you got,
See,
Joe?
I don't see him that way. I see him as like I see him as kind of like small miss, small hit, right? Where it's like,
Right.
I think he is a very safe and sound pick. I think that he's like, I don't see the upside. I think he's like the textbook spot starter backup to me.
Hmm.
I think
Yeah.
he's a violent runner, not in like he's going to bowl people over, but if you try to tackle him, he's going to fight you to the death, right?
Mhm.
He keeps his legs churning, he keeps going. That's what I see when I watch this dude on film. He doesn't have an impressive speed score at 96. His burst score is 125 at 213, right? That's all. Those are all fine numbers. None of that's alarming by any sense, in any sense of the imagination in terms of like his size. So I think he's like the run of the mill, super solid back. Like in most classes, he's definitely top 10. In some classes, I think he's top 5, like maybe last year. So that's not to poo-poo him in any way. It's just um, in this class with so many guys with like these elite traits, I don't see any elite traits in Devin Neal except for like, yeah, I don't even know. I kind of feel like his pass blocking is not even there. People talk about his pass blocking. I watched games where he got blown up in pass protection.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, I feel that.
yeah,
I think he's
so
a touchdown scorer though, like 16 in each of the
he
past
is
two
good at the goal line.
seasons.
He's good at the goal line. I
Give him
will give
that,
you
like,
that.
and
Yeah.
and if someone takes him, he's gonna be getting that role, you know what I mean? I think he's gonna earn it, not just be given that role. So I think there's touchdowns in his future as well. I mean, it has to be a Kareem hit, like a Kareem Hunt like hit for sure. But I think it's in the realm. Joe or Jax.
Yeah, my comp for him sort of before, watching him and just sort of looking at some of the metrics and stuff like that was Ray Davis. And I'm feeling kind of good about that. I mean, they're both running the 4.5s. They both have that sort of, 5.9, 2.10 or whatever it is. Right? They're kind of similar players in a lot of ways, like similar size. I mean, I don't know if they exactly play alike to be square with you, but both had subpar metrics at some of these things. Like Ray Davis was 1.00 yards per route run for his career. I think Devin Neal was only 0.97
Yeah,
yards.
not
So
great.
so 0.97 and one, like the metrics are very, very similar for these guys. They both were touchdown scores. I'd have to look at some of the broken tackles, missed tackles for stuff with Ray Davis, but Devin Neal, not great at that. I mean, not bad. It's not like awful or anything. It's fine. He's just fine. He's just not. I think we said it from the outset. Like when I first liked Devin Neal, it was like I feel like he's going to be a pro's pro, where he's good at everything and not great at anything. And I think that speaks to Joe's point that he's kind of that perfect backup running back because he can fit any sort of role, any he can do anything but nothing great. And I think that's the journey for Devin Neal, in my opinion.
Yeah, I
We
think
shall see.
the way I could crystallize this the best, I think, is this. Every running back in my top 10, I can make a case for them being an RB1 in fantasy. Devin Neal, if he was given the keys to some offense, I don't think he's an RB1. I
Really?
think he's probably an RB2, which is fine. It's good. We will take that. If like that situation arises, I'm super interested. But right now, pre-draft, pre-landing spot, the way I'm ranking these dudes is like who can be an RB1, and then if they can't, like we'll go next tier down. And that's really who's got superpowers, who differentiates themselves in a certain way. And I think he's a jack of all trades, master of none. That's kind of where I'm at.
Interesting. I think it's interesting that you see even with the keys of an offense that he couldn't be a running back one, but you think Scatabo could be a running back one. That's interesting. I think it'll be interesting to see it play out too. I just
Big
don't
pass
necessarily
catching,
see it as
big
much.
it's the pass catching chops that
Yeah,
Scadabo has, in
Yep.
addition to the tackle breaking, and that's like the receiving is a huge factor here
You
for
for
you
sure,
sure.
know,
for sure.
hey, guys, I asked Cody Carpentier, and it made him pause. And I've seen someone else say it on Twitter, but hey, if Kyron Williams can be great in the NFL, why can't Cam Scatabo? And that's where I kind of have, Kyron was that type of player, like, just, made big plays, was a coach's pet. Everybody loved him, but then he goes out and tests, and he wasn't that great a tester. He's a little bit smaller, of course, than Scatabo, but sort of in that
About
same.
25 pounds.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but in that same vein of like, exactly. But like, I think Kyron's more of a technician than Scatabo. Scatabo's a little bit more of a beast, but whatever. You get my
Yeah.
point. It's like, here's this guy who's, really, really great at everything, but is flawed. He was small and slow. Scatabo's, well, slow and white. That also has, working against them for some evaluators, but he's not a perfect player. He did come from a small school, probably because he was white to begin with. So again, I think there's some stuff there, but I think if Scatabo gets a backfield, I agree with you. I think he does have upside because of that pass catching. Couldn't agree more.
Do we think is all of that kind of saying that, like, similar to Kyron Williams and even maybe Scatabo, we might be betting a little bit on an outlier there, like, which I think is interesting, seeing that these guys are top 10, and I would be betting on an outlier in Devin Neal with some of that statistical stuff that you said too, Jack. So I think it's
If
kind of
Scatabo, I mean, excuse
interesting.
me, if Kyron would have got drafted in the late second, early third round in the NFL draft, we would have been singing a different Kyron tune. But because he was slow and small and then fell in the draft, that's when we felt had him fall in our rookie drafts, and we were wrong. We should have kept him right up
Mhm.
there in that second round where we had him, as it
Yeah.
turns out. But it's hard to keep. The Bucky Irving corollary still exists. Which is why
Mhm.
we have a hard time here with this class, because I think if some of these guys were in a class that was devoid of deeper talent, it'd be easier to
Yes.
identify the sort of the one. We'd be like, no, it's Cam Scatabo, bro, he's good, or no, it's
That's
it's this guy. But there's so many of them.
Yeah.
They're all gonna be there's gonna be a ton of them 4th or later, you know what I mean? Which
Yep.
previously it's like, "Hey, I might take one of those in my rookie draft, and I might be leaving with a few of these guys."
Well,
Yep.
I can't let this comment go. The reason Kyron was an outlier is because he was sub 200 pounds
Yep.
with a sub 90 speed score. That's why he's an outlier.
Yes.
Mhm.
Outlier. Cam is 219 pounds with a 93.6 speed score. So he's not an outlier in any way. From an athletic testing, he's not an
Okay.
outlier. Like, we want guys to have at least a 90 speed score if they're over 200 pounds, and at least a 100 speed score if they're under 200 pounds. That's kind of like the break point. So he's not an outlier from an athletic standpoint at all, with great explosiveness. Not to mention, he's arguably got a definitely top 5, probably top 3 production profile in this class. So I don't know what we're talking about. The
No,
dude
that's good.
is
I was
good.
posing the question. I was posing
Like,
the
what about
question.
just straight up as a prospect, Cam Scatabo or Tank Bigsby? It's
Oh,
Scatabo.
Scatabo, for
Scatabo,
sure,
Do
yeah.
you know what I mean? And
for sure.
Bigsby was kind of a, edgy sort of,
Exciting.
right? I mean,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
just
He's alright.
that's how good this class is. It's like, and that's how good Scatabo is. I mean, you got to give him some
Yeah.
credit. I mean,
No, it's fair.
he is a better prospect than Tank Bigsby. Tank Bigsby, pretty good little running back. It was,
Yeah.
so
Could be
here we
taking
are.
Travis Etienne's job, for crying out loud. 'Kay, guys, so I have Ollie at 8. Jax, you have him in there as well.
8. Yep.
So that sophomore season, I'm still sticking with the fact that that is present. And Jax, we've talked about it a little bit as well. And listening to the undrafted, we've heard a lot of people smarter than us say that there was a lot of things going on at Oklahoma State this
Yep.
past season. So I'm still bullish on Ollie Gordon. I'm not necessarily sure what the consensus is, but I think it would probably be a little bit lower than we are. Where did you have him again, Joe?
I have him at 12. So,
You have him at 12. Okay,
and
still a
I'm gonna
solid
move him
running
up.
back.
I'm gonna move him up, and I'll explain why. But we'll let you guys go first, since y'all are making the
Go ahead,
bull-ish
Jax.
cases on him.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think Trav, you said it best. There's been a lot of people that we've been talking to on undrafted. I mean, that like Ollie Gordon. I mean, it's that simple. I mean, um, it's not impressive. It's not like, oh wow, it's impressive. But I'll tell you, his sophomore season was impressive, wasn't it?
Mhm.
So we've got a data point of him being real dominant in a good offense. So I think the skill set is there. I think he probably has like similar sort of ceiling limitations in terms of explosiveness. But dude,
Yeah.
he's fucking big. He's a big, solid player. That look, if he gets, I know we keep saying this. I hate saying it, but if he gets draft capital, right? Like you can picture, and that's the other thing too, is I sort of picture him as a player that if he's drafted with purpose, and someone's going to really fall in love with him. Like I just feel like he's going to Dallas. I don't know why. I just keep feeling Ollie Gordon, Dallas in the third round or something like that, and then it's wheels up at that point,
Yeah.
right? No.
I think it is, like, it's a good landing spot.
I disagree. I think that'd be a terrible landing spot for
Ooh, I
Ollie.
love this.
They're
Rock
running
Tell
an
us.
outside zone. They're running an outside zone. That's never gonna work for Ollie Gordon.
Fair,
He
yeah, it will
needs
needs,
not.
to
yeah,
He's too
be
big.
a gap
yeah.
runner, right? So I don't think that's gonna work for Ollie Gordon. And I had him at number 8 as recently as last week. Trav, you asked us to send us our
Damn.
rankings. If you look at the ones I sent you last week, I had him at like 8 or 9. I was kind of on the same page as you guys, but this weekend in preparation for this episode, I really started digging into it, and I started digging into the schemes these running backs are in and the schemes that they succeed in and what schemes they can work in the NFL. And when I realized like that he's more of a gap player, I started getting a little bit nervous.
Yeah.
And I started thinking like, okay, so where is a good landing spot for Ollie Gordon? So I actually have a list, right? Like Texans run a little bit of zone and gap. Jags run, primarily gap and zone, presumably with, Liam Cohen at the helm. It's funny you just mentioned,
Bucky.
what's his name
Hank?
from,
Hank.
Tank,
Yeah.
exactly. Steelers zone bruiser. I think that'd be a good fit. Chiefs zone, a little more RPO. He's a good receiver too. He might be a good fit on the
Yes.
Chiefs. Like, excuse me. No, I'm sorry. That's zone. I want gap. Excuse me. Chicago, but I think they've kind of already got their bruiser. There's just not that many primarily gap schemes. So he's so scheme dependent to me as a player that I'm nervous. Now, obviously, we like dudes that have a 100 speed score. I don't care how slow his 40 was. At
Right.
230 pounds, he had a 100
Mhm.
speed score. That's good,
Yep.
right? So I don't care that it was a slow 40 based on just straight 40 times.
Right.
And he had 39 catches as a sophomore. So I'm not going to discount that either. He's got outs, right? Big
Yes.
dude that can catch. He's got outs. If you're a goal line back who catches passes,
Yep.
I'm pretty interested. But I want to see his landing spot. And that's why I moved him out of my top 10 because
Hmm.
I'm nervous about the fit. And I'm also nervous about just whether or not, back to my earlier point, this guy can be an RB1 or is he just going to be an RB2 that we like to plug into our rosters?
I just moved him to running back 11. You make a better point than I did. You win.
I do like that point. I'm not gonna move him around just yet, just because I'm not looking at Fantasy Pros at the moment, but I'll take a peek, Joe, and I will, heed your words, and that's what we
It's
do on
funny
this show
because
is we adjust.
you look at him and it's like he just feels like an NFL back. Maybe
Mhm.
there's some like you know what I'm saying? Sometimes you go
I'm
by
with
the
you, yeah.
feels,
Totally.
like feels, and then I look and
Yep.
it's like, yeah, he's not a perfect player. I mean, yeah, this is where it gets a little bit murky. Like I really like RJ Harvey and Scatabo, and then it gets a little murky for me. I'm not sure who that running back 8 is,
Mhm.
and now I'm not feeling Ollie as much. Can you crash my Bayshell Tootin RB8 against the Rocks too, or are you going to agree with that one?
I'm not going to push back too hard on that one. You want me to
Let's
go
hear
on
it.
Bayshell?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. I probably have the most to say about Bayshell than any other player of the players we're going to talk about because he does things that I hate so much, right? His vision concerns me. He gets blown up in the backfield often, but on the flip side, he looks like a very good receiver and he's a decent pass blocker. And when the hole is there, he's trouble. Where I get frustrated with him is like he loves to fake cuts. And that's both like a strength and it's also a weakness. The problem is like he overdoes it, right? So there's like tons of wasted steps in what he's doing. But when the hole is there, good Lord, he's gone. He's gone, right? So you want to talk about explosive runs, burst, whatever the hell you want to call it, dude. This dude can house it from anywhere. And that's evidenced by his, 118 speed score, which is the best in the class, his 133 burst score, which is the best in the class. So he's absurdly athletic, and he opens lanes that other guys wouldn't have. And the reason I say that is this. I mentioned this several weeks back. He does this thing that I've never seen before. He cuts often off of his inside foot. So instead of cutting on the outside foot, he will fake to the outside and then he'll make the cut off his inside foot. And that shit is crazy. I've never seen another running back do that. That is mind-blowing to me. So I'm like, all right, so he's got all these bad habits that might drive certain coaches absolutely nuts. But if he's put in the right hands and with a coach that understands him well, like he could be like Achan, plus. So and just
Ooh.
one more note, just on film stuff, right? My note, just because I thought it was such a good note, I loved it. I reread it today, right? He's a matador one-on-one on the outside. He has this great stop move, right? When he's on the outside and a defender's got an angle on him, he's got this incredible stop and he just like swoops them like they're a bull and then he's gone. So like he does these things that are awesome. He does these things that drive me nuts, which he might mean he's a maddening player. That's why I put him at 10. I kept him in my top 10 because he's a dude that I almost said this is a guy.
This is a guy drink.
He's a dude that has
Guys, I just want you to
RB1
know.
upside.
I just
Yeah.
want you to know that I don't drink, so I have to smoke weed every time we do
Oh,
this.
okay.
I just want us to be a little bit
Perfect.
careful. With the guy who
So-
has to host the show.
So I want him. I decided today that I want him to go to the Bears, and be Ben Johnson's new toy.
New
I
toy.
think he will be awesome on that offense. But he does have some characteristics that I hate and some characteristics that I can't ignore.
I just moved Bayshell Tootin behind Jarquez Hunter. Yeah, this is crazy. I keep having a hard time falling in love with anybody at 8. So now it's Jarquez Hunter, then Bayshell Tootin, then Ollie Gordon.
I was actually just advocating for Bayshell.
Didn't do a good enough job,
he's got
Joe.
the best speed and burst score in the class. Like we can't ignore that, right? And like that inside foot cut is wild.
Yes.
I like it creates angles that nobody else has, right? And that's going to be a problem if he plays.
Yes, if he plays. I think that's the issue too. So he's there for me because of, ceiling, right?
Yeah.
He's not a floor play in any way, shape, or form. His floor is pretty scary. His ceiling,
Bryce Brown.
however,
His floor is Bryce Brown.
right,
Who?
exactly.
You know who he is.
Of course, I know who fucking Bryce
course
Brown
you
is, Joe.
He had that one game and we got all excited
It
and I
was
was like, oh no, the
incredible.
flaws
Fly,
came
Eagles,
out.
fly, baby.
Yeah.
Yep. But that's it, right? So I mean, he does have sort of very limited floor and unlimited ceiling in some ways, but I think Jarquez Hunter is tell me how I can go wrong with Jarquez Hunter. I can't. He's RB8.
I like him too. Really solid after contact. He can get some big plays as well. Not the greatest pass catcher, but he wasn't necessarily a net zero. So I don't mind Jarquez Hunter. I have him at 13, which I think is still a totally respectable ranking in this class, but
Yeah.
I have him right behind Damian Martinez, behind Bayshall Tootin as well, just outside of that top 10. So yeah, I think he's going to be a good running back if he gets some of that role, especially at the very least as a first and second down banger, if not a little bit more.
God,
Joe, you're shaking your head. You're just
no.
everything
I
tonight.
like Jarquez Hunter. I like him a lot. Actually, I've got him slotted as one of the dudes I'm moving up, and I think I'm moving him up. Like I have him at 16, guys, but I've got him slotted to move up.
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly how high I'm going to get him. His vision appears to be really good. What I like about him in the open field, he's actually kind of sick in the open field. He's he's got the Tecmo Bowl thing in the open field, right? Like he zigzags. You guys remember playing Tecmo Bowl
Yes.
where you zigzag up and down up the field
Yeah.
to get away from defenders? He does that in real life, and it's
Yeah.
fun as hell to watch. He follows, blocks well. And once he sees a hole, he hits it. He's a tough tackle. Like I kind of like everything I see. And I think originally my priors is I kind of typecast him in that Devin Neal sort of category.
Right.
And I've watched a little bit more because I know you guys like him. And the more I watch, the more I start to like him and the more I start to see the beauty. So he's moving up my rankings. I don't know how high I'm going to get him, but I like him as well. And this actually speaks to kind of the point of this episode, right? Whereas we're now at like what, RB9, RB8, and we're
Yeah.
like debating, our range is 8 to 16 right now.
16, yeah.
And you could talk me into 13, you could talk me into
Yep.
Yes.
11, right?
Totally, man.
Yeah.
Totally.
You know,
I'm
I
ready
think-
to bring my
I
running
think-
back 6, Devin Neal, to 12 because of this conversation, like I'm ready.
Devin
Because it's
Neal
just
is a
such
pro.
big
There's
group.
no doubt.
It's such a
Yeah.
big group.
I think for Jarquez Hunter, for me, it's the explosive run rate too. Like, so he's got that, he's second in the class behind RJ Harvey in explosive run rate,
Yep.
15-yard run rate for his career. Now that's ahead of players like Ashton Jeanty, Travion Henderson, and Bashel Tutin, who are also very, very high in the class. Brashard Smith as well. But basically he's by himself there, at 10.2, just behind RJ Harvey's ridiculous 12.2%. So he also is he's above 30% missed tackles force per rush for his career and in his final season. He's 6.5 yards per carry in his final season, 6.3 yards per rush for his career as Jarquez Hunter. He played in the SEC, right? Auburn's still in the SEC. Is that correct?
Yep.
Like,
Pretty
dude
good.
played, right? Dude played at a high level. I loved Cody Carpentier talking to me about like how he was on the media day access for college football thing, and there would be this sort of media call that lasted hours, and they would always, all these coaches and all these would always prepare for Jarquez Hunter. It was always about how do we stop Jarquez Hunter. So he may just be that kind of a runner. On the downside, really is, like you say, his pass game utilization, 68 career receptions, only 0.89 yards per out run for his career. But, nobody's perfect. And especially when you're talking about an RB8 to RB12 type of player. But I think Jarquez Hunter belongs there. And if he gets draft capital, let's go Jarquez Hunter.
Well, real quick, I just want to point out the funnest game of his that I've watched so far is the game against Kentucky in 24. Here are my last 4 notes. Another great run up the gap where he exhibits the same patience waiting for the hole. Gain of 20 plus. Next note. 45-yard gain. Entire line pulled left when he went straight. It was like to the right of the line, but because the line pulled so much, he basically just waited and then ran a straight line. Next note. Another 45-yard run. Touchdown. A gap. Waited again for the hole and then hits it hard. Nobody catches him. Last note. They're in victory formation. After the snap, he does a backflip.
For funsies.
Yeah, and I was just like,
For
wait a minute.
funsies.
His explosive rating's not that high in terms of his burst score. I was like, dude could do a backflip just on the fly like that after playing a full game. He's probably more explosive than we think.
Yeah.
Ran a
that's for sure.
4.44, which is 105 speed score, which is plenty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like him, and I think I texted you guys before the game. I was like, we were delayed a little bit. I was like, fine, I'll watch more Jarquez film, right? So I was like,
Totally.
finishing up that game, and I was just like, holy shit, dude, I need to move this guy up.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, Jax, I'm curious to hear where you have Damian Martinez, because I got him at 12. Joe, I think you said you had him at 8 and or somewhere in that top 10 there, which is the most bullish of the 3 of us, I believe. I think he also could end up being one of the most fun guys to watch in the NFL out of this entire class as well, just for the size speed combination that he presents. What's your stance on Damian Martinez, Jax?
Well, I think, everything you hear about Damian Martinez is he's a skillful runner without very much pass game upside, which is what dropped him down for me. But, the fact that we're searching for a player to put here. You could talk me into him at 11. I have him at 15, but like this tier is one that I'm also. This is fun for me because
Mhm.
like I'm always tinkering with these rankings because I like so many parts of different players, and then you get scared about their weaknesses, and then you start to feel one way about a player. So I'm ready to be talked into Damian Martinez. It sounds like you both like him a little bit better than where I have him. So maybe you should share why, because I'm not against moving him way up.
Get in there,
Trav,
Joe
you want to go
Coy.
first?
You have at her, buddy.
All right. So I have him at 8 right now, but I actually have DJ Giddens slotted to move ahead of him, which we'll talk about him soon.
Mhm.
I got probably a little overzealous watching it this weekend because I had so much fun, right? Like literally just turn on more film. I watched a little bit on him already, but turn on more film. And like from the first carry that I watched this weekend, I freaking love this guy. He's got the Marion Barber Isaiah Pacheco
Yeah.
thing when he
Yeah.
runs. It's like an angry runner, right? So like I'm just imagining him being like the battering ram on the Chiefs. And it gets me super excited. Like I think he's actually, you mentioned the pass catching profile, and I know it's not great, but I actually think he's a better pass catcher than his profile suggests. Like, I think back to that like wild Cal game where he caught, he had 4 receptions and 2 of them were pretty tough catches. One was like over his head. He double caught it, but he did come down with it. Then he had another tough grab. So, like, my superlatives for him are like pile pusher, always falls forward, always getting gang tackled because the first guy can never bring him down. Slightly upright runner, but he drops the pads when it's time. So I think he's doing that because of, I don't know, just for speed, but like when anybody's near him, he punishes them. He's a good blocker, and my last name is just like man runner, right? Like this dude is just fun. If you don't like Damian Martinez, you don't like football.
Yeah.
Yes.
Total, like, talk about flashbacks. Think of like a Christian Okoye from way back in the day, but
Ooh.
maybe not quite to that violent level because that was crazy in a different era of football. But yeah, I think all those things you said, Joe, I think he's a guy who has to fit a very specific role, and we'll have to find a team that's willing to give him that. And I have to admit, there's not as many of those teams around as there may have been about 15 and 20 seasons ago. But look at what a guy like Najee Harris is doing as one of those bigger guys who can take on some volume and get some big plays here and there, despite not getting a bunch of pass catching work necessarily. So I don't necessarily see him being Najee's ceiling, but I think, what's Najee putting up, like 1,000 yards and maybe 10 touchdowns at his best so far. So I think Damian Martinez can come in, and if he can get a role, he can do something like that as well. So a bit more of a dart throw and maybe more of an outlier in today's NFL, but a fun one at that, who has more explosiveness than your typical big plotter outlier, let's say.
Yeah, I think that's actually interesting. I mean, Najee's, 132 where Damien's 117. They've got similar speed scores. But I mean, like, I actually think Damien, even being, 15 pounds lighter, is like more violent, way more violent, and it's
Yeah.
fun as hell.
Yeah. It's going to be sick. Okay. So let's talk about DJ Giddens. Jax, he's been on my radar for a while because of you. I know you like some DJ Giddens. He is very fun to watch. His tape is very, very fun. He makes a lot of guys miss. I'm a big fan. For some reason, the love that we had for Ben Sinnott last year makes me root for Kansas State guys. It's kind of this weird thing, but for some reason, I'm just rooting for DJ Giddens because I rooted for Ben Sinnott, who came out of the same school. So a little bit of a weird correlation there. But tell me
Just
about.
love K State. Yeah.
I guess so. Yeah, big K-State guy up here in Victoria, BC, Canada. Jax, tell me about why you love you some DJ Giddens.
Well, I mean, he's big and fast, right? I mean,
Yeah,
that's a good place to start.
And
And
explosive.
he's and explosive and bursty, right? So he's got all the raw materials. I don't know what the NFL will think of him. He does fall short of um the BMI. He's only 28.7, so he's a little long and lean. So what's that, like a Felix Jones? Remember that dude?
yeah, he was dope.
Right? Right. So sort of maybe not quite that explosive, but this is the type of player. Felix Jones probably a better player in today's game than he was when he came out. So, maybe
Definitely, Jax. Yeah.
right, right. So today's game, I think the BMI matters a lot less. He was pretty good in the pass game. Looking it up right now. He's 11.7 yards per reception for his career, so pretty electric in the pass game. He's one of the most bursty players at the combine. Was he the most bursty? No, it was Tootin was there, but
He was the second most. He had the second most bursts at the combine and a 110 speed score.
bingo. So that's very athletic. And I think if you're going to bet on some athleticism on a guy who has a 6 yards per rush for his career, was 6.5 yards per rush in his final season, pretty good missed tackles forced, 217 pounds. Like, there's a lot to like there. The film guys don't love him. That was another one. He was the guy who had like a really, really low PFF grade. So like there's some mixed messages you get with him. And I think those are some of the reasons I'm a little hesitant to just be like, I love DJ Giddens. So probably just stems from the BMI and PFF and others sort of being a little lukewarm on him. I would actually defer right now to Joe, who's done a lot of film work on all these guys. Is there something that we might be missing in the data that, the film kind of shows as an issue, or what do you think?
I mean, the commentary is kind of like a straight line runner, which I don't know. I kind of think is BS because, um, let me. I'm gonna give you some anecdotal stuff.
Okay.
In our campus camp league, you're in that league with me, Jax. I traded DJ Giddens for Christian McCaffrey this year. Christian McCaffrey plus,
Right.
right? So it's like the campus kid, the dudes that watch college football know what DJ Giddens is, right? He was awesome. After the combine, I saw this 110 speed score and this 132 burst score, and I knew right away. I was like, that's a rare combination of athleticism. And I was looking for comps, and then I was reading JJ Zacharyason's prospect guide.
Hmm.
And I'm going to defer to what he said because I think he encapsulated this perfectly. He said, there are only 9 running backs in his model's database who had a speed score of 110 and a breakout score of at least 75 and a best season's total yards per team play north of 2.
Hmm.
Those guys are stud after stud. Todd Gurley, Ezekiel Elliott, Joe Mixon, Leonard Fournette, Saquon Barkley, Jonathan Taylor, Najee Harris, Brees Hall, and Kenneth Walker.
Hmm.
He said it better than I could.
Yes, that's good.
Right? Like that is a dope set of skills. And he also, had a lot of catches his last 2 years, right? He's
Yes.
a good receiver as well. So speed, burst, athleticism, and
Yeah.
his comparables in some models are, stud after stud after stud after stud.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, you're helping me
and we
get there with DJ Giddens because, here's the thing.
Yeah.
Early declare. He had 1,200 and 1,300 yards rushing in his last 2 seasons. Like you say, the 6 yards per carry for his career. He had in those 2 seasons 30 and 20 receptions. He's 1.24 yards per route run for his career. Yeah, there's a lot to like here. I think you may have brought me all the way back to DJ Giddens. Sometimes I'll have. It's interesting for me because now I'm having guys on the show where it's like, they're so good at what they do. Like you talk to like Cody Carpentier or, uh, Debro or any of these guys like Felix Sharp and Thor Nystrom and whoever you talk to last, you're like, I'm just going with whatever he said. He was fucking great, So it's
Yeah.
true. Like I get kind of influenced by other people because that's kind of I'm a little bit of a curious sort. I'm like listening and like, oh, what does he think? So I'm getting moved around on these guys sometimes, and I think finding my true north on DJ Giddens.
Ha! See what you fucking did there, my guy. So is DJ Giddens the next in the list of musical chairs running back 8 for you, Jax?
I think I might move Giddens to RB10 above Ollie Gordon Now it's
Nice.
basically Giddens or Tootin. What do you guys think? Giddens or Tootin?
I think
I,
Giddens for me. He's going to be moving into the number 8 slot.
I've
I've got
got
him.
Giddens at 8. I've got Martinez at 9 and Tootin at 10. But I could probably move Tootin above Martinez too. Like
Huh.
I feel like I have some recency bias because I spent so much time on Martinez this weekend, just digging into more and more games. I was like, I fucking
I
love this
love
guy,
this.
right? But
I love
like
this.
that could like just what you were saying when you're talking to people, right? When you watch film on these guys, the
Yep.
same thing happens. You're like, huh,
This
that's
guy's
pretty
good.
dope.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
pretty
Mhm.
dope, right? And so it's
Totally.
like it's happened to me with a lot of prospects too, right? And so I have to let myself digest a little bit, and that's why I was like, all right. 8 for Martinez is too high. I got to move Giddens ahead of him. You got to look at the pass catching and the athleticism and the production profile, and he's better,
Yes.
right? Tootin, it gets a little questionable because of the school and because of some other things. I'm like, oh god, I don't know. Like that's where I draw the line. It's like him and Martinez is really my decision between like 9 and 10 now.
This is so helpful because I literally feel so much better about my ranks, and it goes starting at 6. RJ Harvey, Scatabo, Jarquez Hunter, DJ Giddens, Bashal Tootin, Ollie Gordon. I'm starting to feel pretty good about that. Like, I think I feel better than I did when I came in, and it's just great to talk through this stuff because sometimes it's like it's really, really hard. And I love this. So this is so good.
Hell
Yeah.
yeah.
Good stuff. Okay, where are we going next, guys? We got there's a lot of names. We could go
Yeah.
forever.
I was gonna say it's 2 episodes.
No,
Yeah, no.
hey. Well, we'll
Easy
kind of
there.
rapid
Yeah.
fire this
quick
stuff, but like
hitters,
this
quick
is
hitters.
actually, I'm getting helped. You guys are winning me money right now. I don't even know about the listeners. Who cares about them? This is good. I love this shit. This is great.
Wait, people are listening?
No, I don't even
Yeah.
know if they are, bro.
Oh,
This
yeah,
is
we're
this is a
recording. We're
private
recording, guys. Yeah.
conversation.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Mhm.
All right,
Um,
so who's
All right,
next?
so we're at
Trav.
11. We're at 11 through what, 15?
hey, how
I
about this? How about
Yeah,
the textbook receiving backs in Brashard Smith and LaQuint Allen?
yes.
What
there
do
we
you guys
go.
think about those two guys? I've got Brashard Smith at 14, LaQuint Allen at 16. I do see the singular-ish skill sets. They might be more than that, though, too, guys. So I think at the very least, if they can rely on that singular skill set and do it well, I think that can be well suited in the NFL. But I'm curious, of course, to see what the bros have to say. Joe, looks like you are getting ready to fire off, brother.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, you got to add, if you're talking about pure receiving backs, you got to add Trevor Etienne to that
Yes.
phylum. And so the way I have those guys ranked is Brashard Smith is number 11, and he's slated to go down, which would more or less move Ollie Gordon, potentially Jarquez Hunter, and or Devin Neal ahead of him. Like I'm not all the way there yet. Let me just talk about Brashard Smith first.
Yeah.
First of all, Senior Bowl winner. There's always a soft
Yes.
spot in my heart for Senior Bowl winner, but it matters more at receiver than it does at running back because of the way the Senior Bowl is played and the lack of tackling and everything. And it's also like a place where he could showcase his skill set more because he's a former wide receiver and there's these one-on-one drills, right? So
Bingo.
I don't know how much weight that actually carries, but it's something. But, we've talked about him all offseason like he's Tyrone Tracy because Tyrone Tracy is a converted wide receiver. But this isn't exactly apples to apples because Tyrone Tracy is 209 pounds and Brashard Smith is 194 pounds. So that's a huge difference in terms of what their workload could be in the NFL.
Yep.
And I think he's likely to get pigeonholed as a complimentary back, which is why I've slated him to move down my ranks. I've kind of let like his Senior Bowl dominance dictate it, my ranking of him so far. Like, hey, people said he was good at the Senior Bowl, so I've got to take that seriously. But when I think about it more and more, like as we get further and further away from that and recency bias goes away, I just go to like, all right, he ran a 4.39. That's really good. At his weight, it's pretty good. That's a 104 speed score. It's not like mind blowing, but he's got the receiving profile. I think he's a Robin. But that's like
Yeah.
all the guys in this phylum, right? Why don't you
Yeah,
guys
I've
go
been
on Brashard Smith and we'll talk about the other guys in the phylum.
No, I've been saying like Brashard Smith, unfortunately, could be the Kenny Gainwell pigeonhole, or worse. I mean, it doesn't. He's no lock to be Kenny Gainwell in the NFL. And so I can't, in all good conscience, have Brashard Smith ahead of Dylan Sampson, even no matter what I think of Dylan Sampson. So I need to have, that next tier, Bashal Tootin, Ollie Gordon, Devin Neal, Dylan Sampson has to be in that group, right? Or do you guys disagree?
I actually have Brashard Smith one spot ahead of Dylan Sampson, 14, and Sampson at 15. Some of the stuff that I said earlier, I think expecting Sampson to be, or having Sampson in the top 10-ish, I feel like is expecting him to hit those big plays at a repeated rate. And I just don't think that's going to translate into the NFL for him at his size.
I just think that like pass catching is so important for running backs, right? And so I don't want to discount it, but and I can't get out of my head him, taking SMU to the college football playoff, right? He like carried them on his back. So that's not nothing either, but it's also like, all right, we're in the NFL now. You're 194 pounds. What are you going to be? So I have like this instinct to kind of cluster him and Trevor Etienne at like 14 and 15, as opposed to like pushing Brashard Smith this far up. So I'm moving him down, but like I don't dislike him by any means. I'm not entirely sure what to do, but he's not like the profile I'm looking for. And there are a bunch of guys that profile as like every down backs and better bets to give you. Let me put it this way. Brashard Smith, I think, can have a weekly role as a dude that can give you 8 to 10 points as a receiving back. But these other guys, Ollie Gordon, Dylan Sampson, Devin Neal, I think they can be like spot starters that can get you 20 points and
Right.
or like Robbins in a different scheme where they're getting carries and catches and get you 12 more consistently. So
Yeah.
I think he's got a high floor with the receiving profile, but his ceiling may not be there.
It may be capped. And what do you do with a guy like Jaden Blue, who does have superpowers, right? He's super fast. Chad from Texas getting excited as we bring him up. But I'm just saying, like, he was like one of the worst ball security players in the in this class. That may also be a problem for NFL teams, but he's fast, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would kind of lump him in that Sampson, that where if he's not going to be able to hit and show that speed and make those big plays, then he's not necessarily going to be very much in the NFL. And where I think a guy like Brashard Smith is a little bit different, whereas if he can't be a runner in the NFL, he can still fall back and be a third down back for some teams as long as he can show them that he can be consistent and reliable in that role. You know what I mean? Whereas I think, the crash for Sampson and a guy like Dylan Blue is much harder than it is for a guy like Brashard Smith.
I guess I would just say, are we trying to get a guy who can give us a sacrifice bunt, but we're sure he's a good sacrifice bunter? Or are we hoping for a guy who's a power hitter that probably is going to strike out, but if he gets hot, he could hit, 30, 40 home runs. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And that we're talking about a guy like, even Raheem Sanders versus Brashard Smith, who I have further down, but like if Raheem Sanders hits his like whatever the best outcome is for Raheem Sanders is probably a higher real life
Higher
production,
ceiling. Yep, I
right?
agree.
If
Than
if
Brashard Smith.
Rashard Smith
Makes
has
sense.
a Tyrone Tracy season, I think that's
But he's
better
20,
than
30
ceiling
pounds less
for
than Tyrone
Raheem.
Tracy.
I know,
He's
but still,
about
like if he can be
15
like a
pounds
solid
less.
enough runner with really good pass catching prowess, maybe not as a rookie, but I don't think any
I
of
mean,
these guys as a rookie, right? Yeah, I don't know. I think I
Hey,
think he's a little bit
hey
better
Joe,
than
you
you.
know what's happening, right? You and I are reverting back to our issue with the size at running back. And
yep.
it's
No, that's 100% what's I was gonna say the same thing. I have this bias, and I
yes,
was wrong last year, and I was wrong the year before.
Yep,
And this guy's faster than both of those
I know.
guys,
Yep.
right? It's like what I don't know.
Here we are.
It's base instinct. It's a base instinct,
Look at
and
us.
this look at
Look at
us. Look at
us.
us.
Now these are some guys.
All right,
Huh?
all right. I don't know. We'll settle with him. I'm like, I don't know, 12, 13. What do we
Yeah, I have
say,
him at
guys? I don't
14, so
know.
right in that range,
Yeah.
right? Like I think we're all in a similar range here, which is really interesting that we're on different, so maybe different sides of the coin, but talking in the same ballpark.
I think we're talking through them. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
like, we both Joe and I come from that sort of mindset where it's very hard to get rid of that mindset, which is why we missed Kyron, which is why we missed Bucky, even though we loved Bucky Irving. We love Brashard Smith. Do you love Brashard Smith, Joe? Of course you do.
Yeah, I
Of
do.
course he does.
I do.
Right? You
Doubt.
do.
This is doubt washing over me.
Yes, this is what it looks like. This is why we're having the conversation, because when you have it with yourself, you just like make him RB10 and RB18, and you're like, I don't
Totally.
know. But
You're
when you
sitting
have
there
this
calling yourself a
conversation,
fucking idiot. You're
yes,
like,
He's
no,
the
that's
same
stupid.
size, and yeah, he's the same exact weight as both of those guys, and he's faster than both of them. What are
yep,
we talking about? Oh my god, Trav, thank you for being our Zen,
yep,
grounding us. I'm not gonna move
Love
him
you
down
guys.
that far,
I
but
love you guys.
I'm
No,
gonna
hey,
move
that's
down a
fair.
little.
That's
I mean, this
totally
is
fair.
this is why we're having the conversation, right? Like this is a useful exercise. I'm glad we're having
Mhm.
the conversation. Got to meditate more on this
You know
one.
what's funny,
yes,
Jax?
yes, we
We were
do.
talking about that solo conversation, and mine sometimes when I'm doing it, it's like I'll be ranking some guys, and I'll be like, I'll take a step back, I'll look at the rankings, I'll be like, no, Jackson Joe are gonna hate that. No, they're gonna think that's
Oh no, no,
stupid.
no, no, no,
No,
no! Don't think
they're
about
gonna
that
hate that.
ever.
No, and
Yes,
it's not even necessarily all like I'm not changing rankings
but
off
you
of
have to
that. There's some
defend it.
where
You're gonna have to
totally,
defend it. Yeah,
totally, exactly. And I talk about it, and I'm okay. How can I justify this ranking? I think it's good process, right? Like I'm trying to make sure I solidify this stuff. So I think it's good that I have you guys
Yeah.
instead of just having to do this because yeah, I'm sitting there like, oh no, these guys are gonna kill me for that one. Am I ready
No,
to like tell them they're stupid for it? And there's been some
you
where
just
I've
got
been like,
us.
no, I'm not ready. And there's been some where it's like, yeah, I'm gonna fight these motherfuckers to the death for it. So
yep.
very fun thought exercises that happen both individually and once we all get together. So
Yeah,
love that
you
part.
just got us, Trav. You just got us.
Yeah.
Brashard Smith, you're right. I got to stop hating.
Yep. But at least we caught ourselves.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I mean, what else do we have here, boys? I think that's a pretty good wrap on these running backs. Do we want
Yeah,
to
for
touch
sure.
on the quarterbacks a little bit, or do we want to maybe
2
save them till
seconds,
next week? Yeah, let's
just
do it.
because
Wait.
we don't have.
I want to get a Dylan Sampson take out because
Go
you
for it.
Oh,
guys
okay.
talked about him earlier.
Okay, fair enough.
I moved him down. I'm gonna move him up a little. I was gonna move him ahead of Brashard Smith, but now I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But I just want to hit this one take just because I'm not sure. He's a perplexing prospect to me, like Bashal Tootin is. So he's like an inexplicably great short yardage runner, right? I think I don't know, I can't remember. Somebody tweeted out that he like converted 38 of his 39 short yardage attempts, which is an obscene, ridiculous conversion rate, especially for a guy that's 200 pounds, right? We talked about his weight previously, 200 pounds, and he had a 95 speed score, and that's below the threshold we want to see for a guy at that weight. But he also inexplicably had a really bad breakaway run weight. Jax, you talked about this. Like he didn't have many of them. I think when you talked to Debro, you both kind of hit on this point. And I don't know, I just couldn't help but think of like this snowboarding analogy, where it's like when you're snowboarding, you see these lines, right? And when you're a beginner snowboarder or like an intermediate snowboarder, like you're seeing the 5 feet in front of you, then you start to see the 10 feet in front of you. And as you get really good at snowboarding, you're starting to see 20, 30 feet in front of you, and your line is determined way far out, right? And I feel like he is like, the steeper it gets or the harder it gets, like the shorter your line gets because you're just focused on the stuff in front of you, right? And so I feel like he's really good at the 5 yards in front of him, but he's not good at the 15 or 20 yards in front of him. And I think that like shows itself where like he doesn't really get through the second level that often, but he's really good on the short area stuff in this burst. And I mentioned before his 40 time, like this guy moves kind of different. He's pretty interesting. And I don't know what to do with this guy. So I moved him down because of his 40 time. I kind of feel like I should move him back up a little bit just because he does have some traits that I like, but I don't know if he's ever going to see the line 20 yards out, if he's ever going to be good in that second level, or if this perceived speed and explosiveness is ever going to be realized.
Yeah, I almost lost what you're talking about there when you were talking about lines and snow and stuff like that. But I
Yeah.
got back on the road, got back on the road here. And in conclusion, Dylan Sampson only does small lines. So No, I think
That is not what Samson does. You know that.
Yeah.
yeah, I know, you gotta be calling Samson for something else.
Yeah.
No, I think, Jax, I'm gonna pass to you in just 1 second here because what kinda stuck with me was where you were talking about, are we going for the home run hitters or the sack bunters? And I definitely understand that the hit on Dylan Sampson is the home run, which is kind of where I usually kinda go to, which is making me think maybe I gotta move him up a little bit, but, I think for me, it's just the likelihood when there's those guys that are those home run hitters, and they kinda have to be a home run hitter to hit. When we see some of these things that we've seen over the offseason process for Dylan Sampson, that just tells me that the likelihood is a lot less and a lot less. So I'm just less willing to take shots on those guys, right? So I see that home run hitting ability, and I could have some Dylan Sampson depending on the cost. I think draft capital is going to be a massive factor for him specifically. But yeah, I'm just a little bit down on him after this draft process. Jax?
Yeah, I was kind of geeking out on whether or not he was better than Jalen Wright as a prospect, and I was just kind of looking at it, and I guess I see what everybody sees. I mean, obviously he had a pretty dominant. This is Samson.
Samson.
Had 22 touchdowns, almost 1,500 yards. I get it. Obviously he was really good. It feels a little one year wonder type of thing with him. I'm not sure. He's a funny case because it's like he was very good to watch on film, right? Like there's a lot of stuff where you're like, and then he's a little smaller, a little slower. The passing game work was not great. I know that's a little bit product of the system, whatever. You can tell me some stories, but it's just like he just falls short on a number of things that I'm hoping that were better, just like you said. But that doesn't mean he's not good though. You know what I mean? Like, so sometimes we drop a guy for some things and then we forget to like, yeah, but he's still good. You know what I mean? And if the NFL, Mike Renner and I think Daniel Jeremiah has him as like RB 3 or 4. One of those guys, I think. I keep forgetting who has who, but some of the big NFL guys have him right up at the top in the top 5. He crashes the top 5 party that we so think is untouchable. He crashes that for a lot of these NFL heads, and for that reason, we have to pay attention to that because if he does get that type of draft capital, what if he goes early second with purpose? It's like
Yeah.
you have to pay attention to that. So he could be moving way up in our post draft rankings because he's not a bad player. It's not like we don't like Dylan Sampson. We just prefer some of these other guys. But when the NFL says we're stupid, we have to change
Yeah.
gears. I think.
Yeah, he's the dude that could probably, I mean, I think I've dropped him so far the furthest, and I think I could raise him back up like the most.
Yeah,
Right. It's weird. It's almost like him and Damian Martinez flipped for me. Right. It's
yeah.
just like,
Right. Right. They did.
Well,
Yeah.
well, I
Totally
mean, I feel
opposite
like I
profiles
feel
too.
like you could
Well,
totally
not
put him in the
opposite.
Ollie Gordon, Devin Neal grouping, right?
that's
You,
where I
you
have him.
know,
That's where I have
yeah,
him.
like he's there. That's fine. So I'm fine with that.
My Ollie Gordons and Devin Neals are lower than your guys' Ollie Gordons and Devin Neals.
Yeah, yeah,
You
for
know,
sure. That's
Not
a tier
anymore.
above for me. Yeah. Yeah. I don't even know what my fucking rankings are at this point, boys.
yeah,
Um, so guys, I got a bit of a proposal for you guys. Why don't we save the quarterbacks for next
Okay.
weekend? Because it's not a huge group. We're gonna have some more time to talk about something. So why don't we offer up the opportunity for our listeners to drop some comments with some
Mm,
things that they want to hear about?
I
And
love
we'll pick
that.
a topic out of that. We're not necessarily going to pick everything or hit on everything, but give us a topic you want to hit. Maybe not too granular necessarily, make it kind of more of a broad topic so you can hit several things on it, but
Yeah,
um, would love to see what you all have to say in there. So comment on the YouTube, comment on the pod drop on social media, give us something in the
Discord.
Discord. If you're not in there, please go and join the Discord. It's free and there is tons of killer conversation happening. I'm
Yeah, it's
dropping
popping.
stats in there all the time. The last couple of days, I dropped some really good regression stuff on Jahmyr Gibbs, but I want to preface this by saying it is not a sell Jahmyr Gibbs take. I would never say that. Lots of fun stuff happening. The community, like we talked about since we started this show, is starting to be built around undroppables, and it's good to see, man. So appreciate everybody for that. So if you guys are cool with that, we'll cut the piss off here. This is a fun show, guys. It was nice to get into the nitty gritty on running backs, and we talked about it. Like, these guys are deeper than this. Like, there's more running backs that we didn't even talk about that are kind of fun. Yeah,
You, you
it's
know, you know,
good.
you know what we're going to be talking about here in the next couple of weeks too. The natural um, content for this show will be the Dynasty Underground startup that we're doing soon, where we get to
Oh,
roast everybody's
baby.
picks. So
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh, hell
coming
yeah.
for you guys.
There's been
I
some
just
good buzz around that. We're getting
I just
close.
I made one note that I want to sort of leave the listener with, which is like my real tier break at running back is after 17. Right? There are 17 guys where I'm like pretty stoked about, and then after that I'm like, man, okay, we're dart throws now. So by my count, 17 running backs, 12 wide receivers, 4 tight ends, and 4 quarterbacks. That's 37 players. That's
Yeah.
3 rounds of material right there. I kind of feel like pre-draft that stuff's sort of set in stone, and then everything in 4 or 5 is kind of like a dart throw,
Yeah.
right? So I just want to point it out that like
Yeah.
I don't remember a 17 running back first 3 rounds.
Yeah.
I
Ever.
don't know, as long as I've been playing Dynasty.
Not since I've
Right.
played, yeah. That'd be
Yeah.
pretty sick.
It's kind of wild.
That
Kind of
would
wild.
be pretty sick. Yeah. Very fun draft season as always. And would
Well
not
put, though.
rather, yeah, very well put, Joe. Yeah. Wouldn't rather be doing it with you guys or our listeners because they're already super loyal. And guys, this is only our 14th episode. So I think there's
Yeah.
something to be said for that. As somebody who has started and stopped many a podcast, that is something special. So I feel like we got it. I know you guys feel the same. Please, everybody, go subscribe to that YouTube channel. It's bumping, and we are on your audio platforms at the Undroppables on social media. Everything else is in that episode description. Stay tuned every week. We're going to be coming up through the draft, through the season, into the next off season, all the time. For Jax, for Joe, I am Trav. Peace.